terraform. What is meant by terraform? What is terraform? And why we need terraform? Why we need terraform? And okay, so on installing terraform. So today's agenda is installing terraform. Okay, and then we will see the rest of the configuration. Now, what is terraform here? So terraform means it's an infrastructure as a code. Infrastructure as a code. So whenever we want to create the infrastructure for our application deployment process, so if you want to create the infra either in the cloud environment or on the on-premises environment, okay, or on-premises, we can use Terraform, okay, to automate the infrastructure creation. We can use Terraform with the virtualization also. Virtual machines will also be accepting the Terraform configuration. Now, what is this infrastructure creation? So, what is this infrastructure creation? For example, let me go back and check out here. That is why we need Terraform. For example, there is an application. This application should be installed uh, in the EC2 instances. Okay, so in the EC2 instances, first of all, what is our requirement to create an EC2 instance? There are 5 requirements to create the EC2 instance. The first one is AMI, and the second one is instance type, and the third one will be key pair, and then we will have key pair, and then subnets, and finally security groups. So these 5 are very mandatory. So if you want to create an EC2 instance in which I want to run an application, first of all, you need to have all these things. Okay. And then to have all these things, first of all, we need to have an VPC created. So if I want to create a VPC, what is the requirement? So in AWS, I'm talking in the AWS environment perspective. If you take Azure also, you can be using the same configuration to launch the virtual missions. GCP also the same, Azure also the same, AWS is also the same. So we need a VPC, which is a isolated network. Okay, so in which we can create the instances, databases, so many things. Okay, so now how we can create it manually? So to create a VPC manually, first we need to log in into console. Okay, so login into console means we need to have the authentication, and if the user is an IAM user, then he needs to have, or else the user needs to have, if the user is an IAM user, the user should have what is that authorization. If the user is IAM user, need authorization to create the VPC. And this is the first step. First we have to log in, and the second one is VPC console. From the VPC console, what we can do, we can click on create VPC, and then we need to provide the name of the VPC, and we need to provide the CIDR block, CIDR of the VPC, and then we can create the VPC. So this is how we can create the VPC manually. Okay, so if you see here, so if I want to create a VPC, what I can do here is I will go to the VPC, your VPCs, create VPC, and VPC and more, name tag, CIDR, and then you can click on create VPC. The VPC will be created. The same step we are going to follow here. Okay, so now once the VPC is created, then we need to create the subnets. Okay, for subnets also the same configuration, VPC console, subnets, under which VPC. So if I want to create a subnet, the things that are required are, first we need to select the VPC. select VPC in which we want to create in which we need to create subnet, and later we need to provide the CIDR. For subnet also we need to provide the CIDR, and then we have to provide the availability zone, and then we have to provide the name of that particular subnet name. These are all mandatory whenever we want to create the subnet. So how we are going to provide that? Manually, if you see the same console access, create subnet, and you have to select the ID. So every time accessing the console is something difficult for me. For example, I will go create subnet management VPC. Here you have to provide the subnet name, availability zone, CIDR, and then you can create the subnet. Despite of doing that, what I can do here is I can create the resources. Okay, we can create the resources with the help of an application called as Terraform. So Terraform is used to create the resources in the cloud environment and as well as the on-premises environment. So that is what we are saying here. So whenever we are creating the resources with the Terraform, what will happen? So Terraform is idempotent. Okay. Terraform is idempotent. What is meant by idempotent in the sense, for example, if we create a VPC, okay, so example, in AWS, if we create the VPC, if we create a VPC, then what will happen means, then Terraform will have a state file. Terraform will have a state file. Okay, state file. So with the help of state file, what Terraform will do here? Terraform will understand that okay, this resource is created, so I don't need to recreate it again. So the duplication will not be there. So for resource creation and automation, what we can do, if we want, we can use the shell scripting also. We can create the resources with shell script also. But why we are going for this Terraform? The only reason is that whenever we are working with the Terraform will have a particular file called as state file, which will load the current state of your resource creation. So what are the resources that are created by Terraform? Everything will be noted in the Terraform state file. When everything is noted in the Terraform state file, then whenever the Terraform is trying to create a new resource, it will check in the state file whether the resource is already created or am I creating right now. So if it is a new resource, then it will create. If it is already created, then it will not create. It will say that refreshing the state. That's it. But in the shell script, what will happen means we don't have any kind of state files. So to acknowledge the current state, we don't have any state file. So what will happen? Duplication of data or else duplication of resource will happen. Duplication of resource will happen in shell scripting. So that is called as idempotent. What is meant by idempotent? Once the resource is created, the application will not check for the application will check the state file and come to know that, okay, so no need to create this particular resource. Already it is created. So that is called as idempotent means. Okay. So now
The
if you see,
state file is like a log file, log. Oh,
it's kind of a log file. You can think like that. Okay.
it will be in our machine or
It will be in our
where
mission.
it
We
will.
can put it in the centralized repository. Slowly I will tell you.
Okay.
Terraform idempotent. So here you can see Terraform is idempotent, meaning applying the same configuration multiple times will result the same final infrastructure without creating the duplicate resources. What is meant by idempotent means it is not going to create the duplicate resources. Once Terraform has created a resource, then it will check in the state file whether the resources are created or not. If the resources are created, then it will not create the resource again. If the resource is not created, then it will create the resource so that the duplication will not happen. Okay. So this is called as idempotency means. And then we will discuss about Terraform workflow. So what is this Terraform workflow? Initially, first of all, what you need to understand here is Terraform will be, will be creating, Terraform will create the resource uh, on the code which the infra developer is provided. Okay, so this code is written in HCL language or else HCL. HCL means HashiCorp language. What is HashiCorp? HashiCorp is the organization which created the Terraform. So it's a Terraform is a open source and freeware that is available, which is created by HashiCorp, and the language to create the resources will be HCL language. Now, when you come to the Terraform workflow, how Terraform will be working out and what we are going to do here is, first of all, there will be a working directory. Working directory will be there, and where we will be writing the code. In the working directory, what we are going to do, we will write the code, write code. And the second one is, you will have the Terraform validation. So whatever the code that we have written is properly written or not, or there are any mistake in that particular code. Whatever you have written, is this correctly written, or is there is any mistake in the code, that will be checked by using Terraform validate. And then once the Terraform has validated, so the entire code is correct, then we are not directly going to create the resources. We are going for a dry run. So it is called as dry run. So we are going for the planning in the sense which resource, with the help of this particular code, which type of resources can be created, what resources will be created, and what are the siders, and everything will be given in the Terraform plan. If there is any problem with the Terraform plan, then we need to recheck the code. Okay. And finally, if the Terraform plan is also successful, then we can go for Terraform apply. Terraform apply means creating the resources. Creating the resource. So these are the things that we are going to do with Terraform. And finally, if you don't want the infrastructure, whatever the infrastructure that you have created, the project is completed, then you can go for Terraform destroy. Terraform destroy, which means deleting the complete resources with the help of Terraform. So this is the workflow of your Terraform. First, we need to write the code, and whatever the code that we have written, whether that is the correct or wrong, we have to check it out. And then what we have to do, we need to do the dry run, which means planning, and then we have to create the resources. And once the project, or else once the requirement is completed, then we can delete the resources. Okay. So this is the Terraform workflow. So now, first of all, let us install the Terraform on our machine. So to install that, what I will do here is I will go to terraform.io, install, download the binary. 1.14.3 is there. What I can do here is I can extract this. Already I have so many Terraforms created over here, but it's okay. So then I'm going to move this to my C drive tools folder. Here I am going to put this in the tools folder. Once I put the Terraform application in the tools folder, whatever the path is there, I want to provide it in the environmental variables. So go to system properties, advanced environmental variables. So what you can do here is, here I can give the path, edit. Either you can give in the system variables, or else you can give in the user variables also. Simply go to the path, edit. Here already C tools is there. So when you provide the path, then what will happen? Whenever the operating system is running any command, first it will check whether that application is there in the path or not. So let me go to PowerShell. So here you can see Terraform version. So when you see this, the Terraform is installed. Okay, good. So now what is my next requirement? So now I will create the infrastructure in the AWS environment. How we are going to create the infrastructure in AWS environment? Let me go to E drive. Terraform basics. Open with code. So here you can give the first one is provider. Provider dot tf. So before that, please install the extensions. Click on this. You can see the extension tab is there. You can search for the extensions. Terraform. I already installed it, but so you need to install these two extensions. HashiCorp extension is better. You can install that. Okay. So now here we have created a file. What is the file? Provider.tf. What is meant by provider means who is the resource provider where this Terraform is creating the resources. Okay. So in the provider.tf, we are going to define which cloud or else which environment we are creating. So everything can be defined in the provider.tf, like the cloud which we want to create the resources. So provider AWS. Simply you can give like this. Okay, provider is AWS. And not only that, here you can do one more thing, that is which version of Terraform that you have to use, which version of AWS that you have to use. For example, if I'm using if I am using AWS, I can give which version of AWS. If I am using Azure, then I can use which version of Azure client I can use. Here AWS client and Azure client. So for example, I am taking AWS now. So what I can do here is I can go ahead with Terraform. So here you can give resources or else required version. What is the current required version of Terraform you can give. So currently I am using the Terraform 14.3, 1.14.3. If I don't want that, then I can go with 1.13.0 also. So depending on my requirement, which version of Terraform is required. So if you see here, Terraform AWS provider. That's it. So this is what we have to provide. Required providers. You can give like this. So what is who is the required? I mean, which version of AWS is required? Currently, we are in the AWS 6.2.3. If you want to continue with this particular AWS latest version, you can continue. Otherwise, you can go with the greater than or equal to 6.0 or 5.0, depending on your requirement. You can check it out. In the 6.0, we will have all updated resources will be there. And in 5. If you are taking equivalent to 5.0, you will not find all the updated tools will not be there. Okay, all the updated resources will not be there. So I don't want to provide any versioning for my system. So simply I will go with the default versioning. Then you don't need to provide the this particular block. This block is not required. Terraform required version is not required. So if you want to go ahead with the simple updation, then you can go with this. Otherwise, no, I want the particular version of Terraform should be used. Particular version of AWS client should be used. Then you have to go with this block. Okay, this block is necessary. Right. So now we are going with the provider AWS. So now what I can do here is in this, I am going to initialize the Terraform. So how we can initialize Terraform? First things first. Sorry. Okay, I will go with the Git bash only. No problem. Terraform init. Terraform init. So if you see, AWS client version is 16.28.0. So with this client version, what can happen? Whatever the resources that are available, so AWS plugin will be installing. So a new AWS plugin will be installing with the name .terraform folder. So there you can see .terraform folder is created now. So this .terraform folder will be helpful for us where all the plugins will be stored. Okay, AWS related plugins will be stored over there. So now we have the initialization of Terraform. Now, if you see what is the provider that I am using, provider is AWS. So in which region you want to create the resources? in which region you want to create the resources. You can provide the region over here and AP-South-1 in this region, which means in Mumbai region, I want to create the resources. Okay. So now try to understand the configuration here. I am having a Terraform. I am having a computer in which Terraform got installed. Okay. So this is my computer. Now where I want to create the resources in the AWS environment, I want to create the resources. So this is my Terraform computer or Terraform workstation where Terraform is installed. So from this computer, I want to create the infrastructure inside this particular AWS environment. How I can create the infrastructure in the AWS environment? First of all, what is my requirement? If I want to create a resource, how I can create the resource in that particular AWS environment? What are the requirements?
Log into the AWS console.
Authentication is required, right?
Yeah.
But for an application, if user is there, we can create the authentication. But for application is also the same. So first one is what I will do. I will go to IAM. Already I have the user account created, but still I will go to IAM. In the IAM, let me go to the users. So here you can see Terraform user is there, no? So for Terraform user, I have provided the administrator credentials. Don't ever create the user with the administrator access. It's a blunder. It's a privacy issue. So if you create the user with an administrator access, he will have all the permissions. And if unfortunately, if this security credentials are exposed for externally, then that is going to be a very big problem for you. So I'm going to delete this. I will generate an access key and secret access key. Create access key, command line interface. Next, and create access key and secret access key. So I need to update this in my computer. So where I want to update, wherever I have my Terraform code, directly you can update this in the Terraform code. Access key is equal to, okay, access key is equal to or secret access key. So, but I don't recommend you to update the access key and secret access key in the code. It is not a recommended process to update the access key and secret access key in the code. Why? Because later we are going to put this code into the GitHub. So whenever we are updating the code into the GitHub, then that is going to be a very, very problematic situation. I don't want that to happen. The authentication, the credentials will be exposed externally for everyone, which is not a very good thing. So then how I have to communicate or else how I can connect to my system. So it's very simple. If you want to get connected towards your AWS environment. Okay, so now what you have to do here is simple. You have to update this in the environmental variables. Go to sysdm.cpl. Okay, or else what you can do here is simple. AWS environmental variables. Okay, this is the command prompt for all sessions to set for all sessions to set for the current session. I want for all the sessions, copy the code. Simply provide the credentials over here. Whatever the AWS credentials that we have generated the access key, copy it. And then what you can do here is secret access key, copy it. That's it. So this is the access key and secret access key. You don't need to provide the default region. If you want, you can provide it, no problem. So let me copy this configuration. Go to the PowerShell. Provide it over here. That's it. So the configuration, the values has been saved successfully. So if you see here again, this is dm.cpl. Advanced environmental variables. Look at that. The values has been saved successfully. Okay, good. So now what we can do here is, let me close it again and reopen the Git bash. Terraform initialization is done. So now what you can do, Terraform validate. So when I go for Terraform validation, nothing is there. So it's a valid, where are the resources? We did not create the resource. No, let us create the resources. What is the resource that I want to create? Is a VPC resource, vpc.tf. Or else you can give another name also. Not only vpc.tf, you can give main.tf, anything, whichever is comfortable for you. It's not a proper, I mean, you have to provide this particular naming convention only. In Terraform, only for Terraform TFVars, we have the naming convention. For everything, it's your wish. Whatever the name that you want to follow, as per the company standards, you can follow. Okay. So then I want to create a resource. The resource is AWS VPC. Yes. Questions?
Yeah, for a provider alone, we should keep provider, right?
You
In
can
the
keep
profile.
main.tf. What is there? It's not like
Okay.
you can give any name. It's not like you have to create with this name only. Okay, Terraform will not follow that, except for Terraform TFVar file. Every file is your naming convention. You can give it like an as per your company standards.
Mhm.
Okay, right then. So now here you can see that resource name is there. What is the name here? So if you see reference name, what is this reference name in the sense? For example, in our childhood, we used to have multiple subjects like Telugu, I mean, for English, Hindi, mathematics. Let us take the groups mathematics, science, and social subjects. So, for example, if I open the social textbook, that is a reference book. So, if I open the social textbook, inside that we will have the what I can say, geography, history, civics, and economics. These four things will be there, and whatever we want to read, we can read it. So, what is my reference point to study something? So, to study something, there is a reference name. So, this is the social textbook. Then all the social related information will be stored inside the textbook. For example, if I open a science book, so that is a reference point, that is a reference name where we will be having the complete information about the science. Okay. If I open a mathematics textbook, so there will be complete information about the mathematics. In the same manner, whenever we are creating the resource, so the name of this is not the resource name. So it is not the VPC name. It is the reference name which is understandable by your Terraform. Okay. So whenever I want to create, for example, here I will give demo VPC. I want to create a VPC. So what is the CIDR block of VPC? So if I want to give the CIDR block of this particular VPC, I can give like 172.25.0.0/16. This is the CIDR of that particular VPC. And then enable DNS hostnames is equal to true. And then tags is equal to, here we are going to provide the name of the VPC. Name that is equal to what I can give. I can simply give like Polaris VPC. Okay, let me leave like Polaris. Okay, so here when I create the VPC, let me show you something. We don't have the Terraform state file here. We are having only vpc.tf, provider.tf, and .terraform folder is there, which will have the AWS plugins and everything will be there here. So now I will go with Terraform validate. Did I save it? Yeah. Terraform validate whatever the code that is written is valid or not. If I have missed a single thing, for example, despite of giving the host names, I have given the host name. So then what will happen? I will save it. But then I try to validate it. I'm going to get an error. See there on vpc.tf line 3, VPC demo VPC enable DNS host name is not expected here. Do you mean DNS host names? It is going to throw an error. So whatever the written code is not properly written. So please check out this. The arguments whichever you are giving is not properly handled. Okay, good. So this is how we can provide it. Now, whenever I try to go for the terraform fmt. When I try to format, here you can see the indentation is not properly configured. If you see here, equal to or not there. So when I go for terraform fmt, so look at that, everything will be in a single line. Okay. And then terraform validate. When I go for the validation, what it is going to happen? The code is valid. So when I will go with the terraform plan, I'm just going with the workflow. When I give the terraform plan, what will happen here? You can see basically a state file is creating and remove. I mean, automatically it is disappeared. Why? Because we are just planning. We are planning what is going to be created. So here terraform used the selected provider to generate the following execution plan. So it is using the provider to generate the following execution plan. So resource creation are indicated with the following symbols. Plus symbol represent creation. Okay. Terraform will perform this following actions will perform. So it is not saying that it is already performed. So if you approve it and if you want to create it, it will create. So what it is going to create? AWS VPC dot demo VPC. So it is a resource reference name. So a resource is getting created under the reference name for Terraform is demo VPC. But what is the resource name? Resource name is Polaris. So the VPC which is getting created is Polaris VPC. But this is the reference name that will be understandable by your Terraform. So whenever the Terraform want to know what is the ID of the particular resource, then it will go and check in this particular resource name, demo VPC name, it is going to check for the VPC ID. Just like I gave you an example, no, how we are going to check for any particular topic, how we are going to open the books and check it out. In the same manner, here also it is going to go into the Terraform state file. There will be a resource created with the name demo VPC. This is the reference name. Under that, we are having the VPC ID and everything. Okay. Now we go with Terraform apply. I want to create the resource here. When I give terraform apply, it will ask me, do you want to create the resource? Yes, I want to create the resource. When I give yes, here you can see what will happen means here you can see that a terraform state file has been generated. Okay. And here the resource got created. So now if I go back to my AWS environment, let me go to VPC. There you go. Polaris VPC got created with 172.25.0.0/16. Okay, so the resource got created. So the information will be available inside the state file. So the serial number, whatever the serial number that you are seeing here, if you are modifying the Terraform code, how many times you modify the Terraform code, those many number of times the serial number will be increased. Okay, so here Terraform has created a resource called as AWS VPC. Mode is in managed mode, and we will get a module mode also. I will show you, but as of now, the type is AWS VPC. The resource which it is creating here is AWS VPC, and the name of the VPC is demo VPC. And here it is the ID. So whenever we are creating a resource in this VPC, then what we have to do? So if I have to show you, for example, I want to create the internet gateway resource AWS underscore internet gateway, and the name. This is the again reference name demo IGW. In which VPC you want to create this internet gateway, or else to which VPC you want to connect the internet gateway. I want to create it to the AWS underscore VPC demo VPC dot ID. So which means that I want to connect this internet gateway in this particular ID, or else for this VPC ID. From where it is going to get, it will go to the Terraform state file, check out AWS VPC, demo VPC. From there, it is going to collect the ID. So this is the reference name. This doesn't mean the name of your resource. It is the reference name for the Terraform. So whenever the Terraform want to create anything that refer to this particular resource, it will check this reference name, and then it is going to check the properties of that particular resource. Okay. Do you understand now?
Yes, got it.
Good. Now let us configure something like, okay. So now we are going to create the internet gateway, and the CIDR or else VPC we have given, and tags. Tags is equal to name tag, name tag. No need of double quotation, but that's okay. Here the name is Polaris hyphen IGW. This is the internet gateway which we want to create. Now I want to create the subnet. How I can create the subnets? Resource AWS underscore subnet, and this is the demo subnet one, demo subnet one, and in which VPC you want to create? VPC underscore ID is equal to hmm, hmm. VPC underscore ID is equal to AWS the VPC demo VPC dot ID. And then what is my next requirement? Cider block. Cider block is directly I am going to provide like 172.25.1.0 slash 24 slash 24, and then availability zone is equal to, here you can provide AP South 1A. Okay. And then what else we have to give? Map public IP on launch is equal to true. We are enabling the public IP for all the resources in this subnet. And then the tags. So what is the tag that we are going to provide? Name tag, that is equal to Polaris hyphen subnet hyphen 1. So this is the first subnet that we are going to create here. And if you want to create the second subnet, what you can do here is you can create subnet 2. In the same VPC, you can create the subnet 2 with the CIDR 172.25.2.0 and AP South 1B. And this is the subnet 2. Done. So now when I try to create the resources here, what will happen? Terraform fmt, Terraform, okay, validate we have to do, but that's fine. So 3 resources are getting created. What are the 3 resources? The 3 resources are internet gateway, subnet, and these are the resources that are getting created. So now Terraform apply. When I go for Terraform apply, then what will happen? It will ask for, do you want to create the 3 resources? Yes. So if you see here, the internet gateway will be created. Let me go to internet gateways, and it is attached to my VPC. And the subnets are also going to be created. So Polaris subnet 1 and Polaris subnet 2. So this is how we can create the infrastructure with the help of Terraform. Okay, already VPC is created. So again, it is not going to be duplicating that particular VPC. So that's why here you can see there is an option called as refreshing the state. AWS demo VPC is already there. So already it is created. So I don't want to recreate it again. So only 3 resources need to be created. And these are the 3 resources. From where it is knowing, I mean, getting that particular thing. So idea that already the VPC is created, because in the
From the
Terraform,
state file.
exactly, from the state file, it is going to check it out. Okay. So the serial number has been
Okay.
increased here. Look at that. Previously it is 1, now it has been increased to 5. So like that, whenever we are creating the resources, the serial number will be keep on increasing. Good. So now if I go for the removal of Terraform, I mean resources, Terraform destroy. If you enter it here, it will ask you again, do you want to destroy the resources? Yes. So if you see here, for destroying, minus is there. For creating, plus will be there. Okay, so then all the resources will be destroyed. Let me go back here. Why I have destroyed this, I will tell you. So there, Polaris is not there, and as well as the subnets will not be there, and the internet gateway is also not going to be there. Okay, all the resources has been destroyed. So now here, whatever the code that you are seeing, now if you see the Terraform state file, the serial number has been increased to 10 and the resources are not there. So when the resource configuration or else the resource information is not there in the state file, then what Terraform will think, whatever the data that is here as per the resource configuration data is there, no? So the resources are not created. So I will create it. I will create all the resources. It will try to create the resources. Okay, in the state file, the information is not there, no? So then it will check in this particular configuration. So the resources are not created, so I will create it. Now the main point is, whenever we are creating the resources, here we are hard coding the entire data. If you see here, cider block is hard coded, and the names are hard coded. Subnet siders are hard coded. Availability zones are hard coded. If I want to reuse this data in any another project, if I want to reuse the data in the another project, it is not a proper data. Why? Because it is completely hard coded. Now I want to variabilize it. First of all, we need to define the variable. So how we can define the variable over here? It's simple. Var dot VPC underscore cider. Here you can give anything, VPC cider or CIDR. So any name which is as per your company standard, you can provide that. I'm giving like this VPC cider. Okay, so that will be very easy for me to understand. And then here you can provide var dot VPC underscore name. Okay, and then here I can provide the, so this name is okay. Let me leave like this. I will tell you about that in the next session. Var dot subnet underscore cider underscore one. This is the var dot az1, and let me leave the name hard coded. We can rename it also, but I mean we can variabilize that also, but I will leave like that. And here you can provide var dot subnet underscore CIDR underscore 2, and here var dot az2. So these are the variables that I have declared. Okay. So now when the variables are declared, we need to define them. We need to define them, or else at least we need to provide the values for them. So how we are going to define? Simple. Here we are going to create a file called as variable.tf or vars.tf. Okay, so I'll go with variable. So what are the variables that I'm going to declare here is, I will declare VPC underscore cider. This is one of the variable which we have declared. And here you can provide something like what I can say default, simply here you can give default and description. So what is the default values that you want? If you are not providing the values, it will take the default values. If you provide the values, then it won't take the values. Okay. But anyways, so here I am not going to provide any default kind of thing. Simply what I will do here is I will go with the CIDR, and then Alt Shift down arrow. If you give this, then it will be copied like this. The next one is VPC name. So if I want the VPC name, VPC underscore name, this is the another variable that we have defined. And the next one is subnet cider one, subnet cider one. Okay. And the next one is, sorry, double quotations has been removed. 1 second. I'll go like this. Subnet cider one, like this. And then what else you can give? Subnet underscore CIDR underscore 2. Good. Subnet cider 2. And then we have to provide the AZ1. AZ1. And then we need to have the AZ2. Okay, good. Done. So these are the variables that we have defined. Once the variables are defined, we need to provide the values. How many ways we can provide the values? So if I go with the command line, what will happen here? Terraform fmt, terraform validate, and then terraform plan. When I'm going with the plan, here you have to provide the variables. So I will go with the value name is ap hyphen south hyphen 1a, az2 is ap hyphen south hyphen 1b, and the subnet cider is 172.25.1.0/24. Okay, and the second subnet cider value is the same, 172.25.2.0/24. VPC cider is also 172.25.0.0/16, and then VPC name is Polaris. When I give this, then you are going to get the output. So through the command line, you can provide the variables. So the other way how you can provide it, every time providing through the command line is a very difficult task for us. Then how we can provide the values apart from the command line? If we are having only 4 resources, then we can simply provide it through the command line. For example, if I am having some 20 resources, some 30 resources, then every time it is not a recommended practice to give through the command line, right? So then what we can do here is, here we can create a terraform. So this is the default name for the values, tfvars. So definitely it should be terraform tfvars only. It's an understandable name for the terraform. Don't give any another name, like whatever we are providing here, like vpc.tf, provider.tf, like that. It is not a common name. So terraform.tfvars is a default name for the terraform to understand where the values of that variables are located. So what are the variables? These are the variables. So we need to provide the values. So Alt Shift and drag it. For example, Alt Shift and drag the cursor. You can delete everything. End equal to. So from here you can provide the cider. The cider is 172.25.0.0/16, and then here VPC name is, you can simply give like Polaris. Okay, and then the cider block of this will be 172.25.1.0/24 slash 24. Now it is going like this. Okay, that's fine. And the next one is 172.25.2.0/24. And then availability zone is AP hyphen south hyphen 1A. And then the second one is AP hyphen south hyphen 1B. Like this, you can provide through a Terraform, like what I can say. You can put them in the Terraform tfvars file. All the values you can put them in the Terraform tfvars file. Now here you can see again Terraform fmt, Terraform validate, and then Terraform plan. When you give this, then automatically it is going to fetch out the values from that Terraform tfvars file. No, sir, my company is not accepting this particular naming convention. So then what you can do, for example, I will go with Polaris tfvars. So I am giving with the company name itself. So then what you have to do here is, then you have to give Terraform plan hyphen var hyphen file is Polaris.tfvars. So then it will check out. Okay. So if you don't provide this var file, no, so then it will not understand where the terraform values, the variable values are located. So previously, as you have provided terraform.tfvars, that's a default name. So it will go and check in the terraform.tfvars file and it will understand, terraform will understand it. Okay, the values of these variables are located in this particular file. So it is going to fetch out that. Okay. So, but if you are giving a different name, then definitely you have to provide the var file. Otherwise, what you can do here is you can give like auto.tfvars. Automatically, it will find out that. So auto.tfvars. When you give this, then automatically Terraform will recognize the variable values. So you don't need to provide these things. Hyphen hyphen var file is not required. Simply if you give Terraform plan, it will go for the Terraform plan. If you are giving the different naming convention, like your company name or else the client company name, so then you can give .auto.tfvars. No, sir, I don't want to go with the auto.tfvars. I want to just go with the tfvars. Then you can simply give hyphen hyphen var file in the command line. So either the way, it's your wish whether you can go with the auto.tfvars or else you can go with the hyphen hyphen var hyphen file. Depending on your requirement, you can select that. Okay. So this is the concept of your basic Terraform introduction. So where we have seen the variabilizing, what is meant by Terraform, how to install Terraform in Windows environment, and then how to work with that. So in the next session, what we will do here is we will totally understand about the Terraform TF state and then the dependencies, some of the functions that are available, and then we will go ahead into the Terraform functions.